Well, in breaking news, it turns out the FIA is incontinent. No, sorry. No, that's wrong. Incompetent. Yeah. Lots to talk about today. Let's get into it.
Should we? I mean, should we seriously talk about FIA? I mean, screw them.
I mean, the conversation is probably as pointless as the FIA in general, but I guess given it's going to be there, we should probably talk about it.
I mean, before this race, we could have said as pointless as Sauber, but now I have to say as pointless as Bottas. So that's it.
Yeah. They're 23rd on a 20 grid track. Yeah. Right. Let's hop into it. So where are we beginning? I'm guessing with the FIA.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, even though the FIA president wants the drivers to really not have anything to say about it. It's none of their business. It kind of is, right?
Yeah.
It was utter shambles.
It's quite literally their business. Like, that's the one thing I found funny about it. It's like, oh, this is none of your business. It's like, it literally affects us.
Yeah.
Because if our races are screwed, we lose bonuses, money, potential careers. Like, it literally...
Safety.
Actually, yeah, safety being the biggest part. And I guess that's the main thing we need to talk about, because that was a huge mistake.
I think for me, the biggest pet peeve was not even the safety and everything that happened on Sunday. I think for me, the biggest pet peeve was what happened on Thursday when the news came out that they've reduced the DRS zone by 100 meters.
I just don't... It didn't work in Spa. It didn't work in Monza. Why would it work here? Is there genuinely, there must be some sort of reason for it now.
Yeah,
there has to be. What
there
is
it? The right person is not there on the job.
No, okay. No, but I mean, if you keep doing it at various tracks, there has to be some sort of logic behind it, because you don't... Well, there doesn't have to be, but there should be some sort of logic behind it. I would get if it's like we're cutting it down to kind of, we're going to slowly reduce it to prepare for a DRS list 2026, but that doesn't make any sense.
Was pushed to pass.
Yeah. So it doesn't make any sense.
So I feared this would happen. I mean, I think I realized in due time how the FIA thinks, which is not a good thing, honestly. I should not have. But the reality is, what happens is, last season what we had was a scenario where the sprint was interesting and the race was interesting.
Yeah.
The FIA, as it always does not go into the details. The details were that in the sprint we had a tire difference. There were some teams, some drivers that started on the softs, others started on the mediums, and then you had plenty of overtakes, drivers driving through the field and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
On Sunday, we had mandatory three or four pit stops.
Yeah,
you had
it was
to do
18
15 laps and something. Yeah, something like that. Once you have that, you're going to have an interesting race, because again, you'll have a tire delta.
Yeah.
We had none of that this time. We had negative degradation. What pissed me off the most was on the medium tires, I think it was 28th or 29th lap, they were exchanging fastest laps.
Yeah.
There's zero fucking degradation. What?
This is what doesn't make sense to me, because the only genuine reason I could think of to decrease the DRS zone is if overtaking is too easy, which it isn't at the moment. Let's be honest.
It was, right? Their benchmark was last season, but they didn't look at the details.
I mean, surely after you do it in Spa, you go, okay, well, that didn't work. And then you do it in Monza, and you go, well, that didn't work. So then why would you keep doing it at different tracks? They did it in
because you don't learn from mistakes.
Of course, that's the obvious reason. The only other thing I could think is that the cars are getting faster and therefore you need to slow it down. But again, the tires were fine. As you said, there was negative delta, or negative deg. So there's no science to back any of this up. So it seems just like let's just do things for the sake of looking like we're doing things.
Yeah.
There's no...
And I mean, if you are doing that, increase it. Right?
Yeah.
Never mind, increase it.
Yeah.
It's just, look, you built a kind of regulations that are already tough on overtaking right now. This could not be more clear. And then you're taking steps to reduce the singular overtaking spot.
Yeah.
It doesn't really make much sense. I mean, there's no logic, rhyme or reason to any of it.
You want a conspiracy theory logic to it?
Go for it.
The FIA are really pissed off that F1 basically overrode them on the whole Andretti thing that they wanted, and therefore they want to make racing worse because that directly impacts Formula One Liberty Media in terms of money that they make.
Well, to be honest, the incompetence of the FIA yesterday,
This is the thing.
it's not a good look, but what it does is it generates a lot of views.
Well, this is the thing, though, because if I'm honest, the FIA has proven they're so incompetent that they couldn't plan out a conspiracy like that. So
That's the whole bit.
the FIA is not biased. I've said this before. They're just incompetent, and it's clear.
I hope people learn it sooner rather than later.
Yeah, say it for the people in the back.
Yeah.
It's not
driver
bias.
fans.
It's just incompetence.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, obviously, we're going to talk about Lando's penalty later on because
Let's
I think
just do it right now. I think let's just go through the penalties,
that out.
all of them. Let's just get them out.
so.
of the
We
way.
just
First, the
we're going to
Max one.
talk because I guess that's literally the first big chunk of
There
this.
are two ones, right? There's the max penalty and this one.
Yeah.
I think others were fine. I don't really have
you know
much
what?
issues
If we're going to
with
talk
others.
about FIA, before we get to that, I guess it leads into the Lando penalty, but let's talk about the safety car first of all, because that leads in to the Lando penalty, because that was the most egregious sign of incompetence throughout the race, because the reasoning behind it was utterly a shambles, to be honest. And you're trying to say that you're not biased, which again, they're not. They're just incompetent. And they're trying to do this by saying, well, we don't want to upset people, by calling a safety car during
Which
the
affects
time.
the race.
Yeah, because it's a pit window. Because the big thing that they got shouted at in Brazil was making calls that directly affected, the race director was making calls that directly affected qualifying. For example, the red flag came out after he had waited for Verstappen, people going on about McLaren and so on. So they clearly took all this stupid feedback from maybe the drivers, but it sounds like from fans as well. And then they're like, oh, we don't want to interfere with the race, so let's make sure that we don't call a safety car that could interfere with the race at a time when safety is paramount, because it could cause a flat tire in a high-speed area of the track where there's overtaking going on. And then it did cause 2 flat tires in a high-speed area of the track. It just, it seems to me what's happened.
It could have ideally, very easily resolved. Just have a VSC and
Maybe, but even just call the safety car. That wing mirror wasn't going anywhere. All of us looking at that were like, right, the wing mirror is not going to move. You've got it literally in the only place where overtaking is happening on track. So you're either going to have completely nullified racing, or you're going to have potentially a severe accident when a tire pops. One or the other is going to happen. And you cannot... Safety cars and red flags always affect racing. That's part of F1. So why would you... Do you know what's happened here? And I noticed this last week as well, but I didn't... I thought maybe, look, it's just his first race as race director. The race director last week just purely didn't make a lot of calls, right? The Sainz pit lane incident is a perfect example of they just kind of left it. Let's not push that. Let's not... And what I think has happened is, I think we have had a situation now where 3 race directors have made decisions that fans and teams aren't happy with, and essentially they've been forced to resign or have resigned in some way over those decisions, or at least that's what it looks like. And that has led to a point where instead of fixing the systems, instead of fixing the rules, instead of fixing the issues, they're just consistently hanging the race director out to dry, to a point where this new race director is afraid to make any decisions because he knows it'll come back on him. And the answer was just, I just won't make a call and hope that it solves itself, which it kind of did, because as soon as there was flat tires on track, it was like, oh, well, now we need a safety car. So...
That could have been much worse, by the way.
It could have. It's a 200 plus mile an hour section.
And those are carbon fibers.
Yes. They could have easily...
You can't clean them the way you clean maybe any other thing.
Yep.
It's... that could have been so much worse.
So much worse, yeah.
Yeah, I just think that right now the situation where we are with FIA in general is that the pressure is a bit too much. And I think Tim Mayer made this... I think he also lost his jobs, apparently. So what he's saying is that it's the FIA president is very trigger happy.
Yeah.
And he's he's either panicking or I think just recently he's got hold of a lot of power and he's exercising it.
Yeah.
These are just the two things I can actually look at, because first 2 years we haven't seen this kind of things, but now all of a sudden it's a bit like an everyday thing. Every day someone is getting fired, and you don't want that in a system.
No.
I don't know. I think the re-election is next year, if I'm not wrong.
Yes, but it is for the 2026 season, so he'll be around until it's like the end of next year, right? And then,
but the fate would be decided by then. So either he's just marshalling his troops, he does not want any discontent, anyone who is not in his favor, or he's just trying to build a team that is entirely around him.
Yeah.
Look, if after everything is done, he's able to be in a position where he can actually show considerable improvement in the way FIA works, then maybe it's the right call. But I'm giving him too much benefit of doubt, because he's not shown. There's no method to madness right now, and I'm just, for me the biggest worry is next season is going to be an intensely close championship, and if the FIA governing body cannot officiate a race properly, when there's literally nothing at stake. I mean, fine, Constructors Championship, who gives a fuck? But there's literally nothing at stake. And if in a straightforward race you are screwing this at this level, wait, next season what are you going to do?
Yeah. There's just, look, I think the thing is, it's just been, since he came in, starting with Massey's forced resignation. Obviously he wasn't fired. I don't think any of the three race directors were fired. They all kind of were in positions to be forced to resign, or resigned under extreme duress, essentially.
Force majeure.
Yeah, like in the three situations, you would think that, right, after Massey is basically fired, right? He's shown the door because he gets so much stick from fans, death threats, Mercedes themselves.
I think that was just Toto Wolff being Toto Wolff, honestly.
Yes, and Hamilton not helping, and all this stuff. But like after he left, okay, you could say, right, if it's one person and you've said, right, we're putting the blame on that person, right? When the next person comes in, if it's not fixed, that's when you start to say, right, well, there's a problem with how we do things here. And then when you get to the second person and it's still not fixed, that is, right, now there's definitely a problem with the system, because it can't be, like, you can have a situation in a company, an organization, where one person is actually just doing a bad job, and that is actually the issue. But when you get to multiple people, it's clearly not the person that's the issue, it's the system. And what happened is you had Charlie Whiting, who, for better or for worse, the fans didn't like some of his decisions, but the teams just kind of accepted these are the decisions. We'll argue them when we want to, but he would make the call and it would fall where it may. And Massey tried to do that, and the teams put a lot of pressure on him. And the real answer to the problems would have been, in 2022, we do a review, we figure out what went wrong, we fix the systems, we keep Massey there, and we move on, right? That would have been the better solution. But what's happening now is you're just continuously hanging the race director and not fixing the issue. So there's only really two ways to fix this. One is you just accept that things are going to be shit for about 5 years, and you let a race director bed in and learn from every mistake and get shouted at repeatedly until he takes it on himself to just fix everything and make sure that the changes are made, or that the decisions are made well, by just learning on the job. That's one answer, which it sounds like they're just trying to do. They're trying to find someone who will basically just put up with the pressure until they don't have to anymore. Or the obvious solution is to get systems in place to make sure that there's a review done after every race to fix any issues, make sure calls are done, and to get full-time paid stewards in. But it seems like they just don't want to do any of these things, and they just want to blame people. That's it. That's all they want to do.
Yeah, you know what I realized? We started 2022 with 2 stewards, if I'm not wrong.
Yeah.
After Japanese Grand Prix 2022, where there was the whole incident,
there was a bad call. Yeah.
I didn't realize it then, but that one call led to the second race director's exit. From that point onwards, it was Niels Wittich.
Yeah.
Then we've seen Niels Wittich stay with the team for a while, stay with the entire system for a while. He made a mistake, he's out. So it's basically one strike and you're out.
Yep.
That's not how an organization works.
No.
And it's not. MBS is going to run out of people to hire to keep in these positions.
No one's going to want that job.
Yeah, there's just you can't have that. That's zero job security, right?
Yeah,
that's basically saying that
I was just going to say, this new guy he's not just some random person they put in either. He's been the F2 and F3 race director for a long time now.
Yeah.
I think, so the problem seems to be that he comes in and it's like I said, he came in and the default seems to be indecision.
Okay, wait, sorry. Just to correct you, the previous race director, the one that's lasted for a couple of races, he was the one who'd been the race director for F2 and F3 for a while.
Yes, this current one, right? Is he already fired? Or
there's been one between Niels Wittich and Ruiz Marquez.
Yeah.
There's been one in between. Yeah, there's been another one in between.
Ruiz Marquez is the F2, F3, right?
Ruiz Marquez took over F2, F3 just 2 races back.
Oh.
Yeah.
And now is F1?
Now it's F1, F2 and F3.
Oh, okay. So I'm getting it confused with the guy who was the F2, F3 race director for a long time.
Yeah, the guy who was the F2, F3 race director, he was promoted when Niels Wittich was moved aside.
Okay.
There's been one race director in between the one that we have right now.
Jesus Christ.
Congratulations.
I didn't even know that. That's how ridiculous this is.
Yeah.
Like
that race director had been he had a lot of experience and he worked for I think a couple of years. He was handling both the series. Once he was moved to Formula 1, Ruiz Marquez was put for F2, F3. And now that one, I don't even remember his name. I'm so sorry.
Yeah.
But he's gone and now we have Ruiz Marquez taking care of all 3 series. And unless, by the way, it was supposed to be 4 series then. No, F3 was not here this time. F1 Academy,
yeah.
F2 and F1, so yeah.
But but it's just obvious now that because of all this, obviously they're going to try and not make a decision as often as possible because that's the safest decision. Which is the wrong decision. It just, I don't know. Like this is the wrong approach. And look, that safety car. I'm worried that basically that decision with the safety car, that's going to that kind of decision where it actually could impact safety and could actually put drivers at risk is going to continue to happen no matter which race director you put in now, because essentially whoever you put in is going to be afraid that if they make one bad call, their job is gone. Yeah. And it looks like the only reason Niels Wittich stuck around for so long is because in the period where it was him on his own, there was no title fight. There was no...
Max dominated.
Not even title fight. Like, there was no fight at the front, essentially. There was no poor decisions to make. And basically that means that there's very little pressure. Because when you make mistakes with, that affect someone who's running in P7 or P6 or P12, realistically, no one gives a shit, right? The teams will, but it doesn't get much publicity, so there's not much pressure. But as soon as it's a fight at the front, everyone gives a shit. Like, we see this all the time. Like, it's like, oh, well, they only make decisions that affect Max. And it's like, no, it's Max is winning a lot, so you're only seeing those decisions being publicized. Like, they're making these decisions about lots of other people, but it's just, Max is the guy at the front, and therefore you notice it more. It was the same with Hamilton all the time, and with Vettel all the time.
Still is right now. I mean,
it's confirmation.
That's a different
conversation.
Yeah. So it's just that, I think, first of all, I don't know what FOM is doing right now, or what the teams or the drivers are doing right now. Why are they silent? Why has no one raised any kind of complaint that what the hell is going on?
They're not as such. It seems like George Russell and Max are being quite vocal about it. Unfortunately, at each other, which we'll get into in a bit as well. But George Russell has been pretty vocal towards it. But which is why Ben Sulayem came out and said, like, we're not taking the drivers on hand, because George Russell is a fairly ruthless operator. Even though he's a nice guy in front of the camera, he doesn't take a lot of shit.
Yeah.
Again, we'll get to that. But
the GPDA, they came out with a statement, right? Mm-hmm. And the problem is that they've come out with a statement. They've not been backed by the teams in any way. Teams have just basically just washed their hands and just went away. And you know what's going to happen next season? There's going to be a title fight. Then all of them are going to lay out a collective whine.
Yep.
That things are wrong, nothing's working. Again, the same fucking complaints. But the problem is when there is actually time to settle these things, you lay back. You don't really even. What happened in Qatar should have been questioned by almost everyone. That what the fuck are we doing? Why is this why is something like, is this the standard of race management that we are going to go ahead with? And why has nobody even raised a question mark on the number of people that have left the FIA?
Yeah.
I think every day it's like there are 5 senior members, directors that have left in the last 2 weeks. An organization crumbles after that.
Yeah.
What are we doing? Really, what are we doing here?
It just, look, I think the
Let's
problem
jump to the penalties, by the way.
Well, just before we jump onto that,
Yeah.
I think the problem we're going to have, just to finish out this segment, is we're going to continue to have this issue because realistically, as you said, the teams and drivers don't seem to, or the teams,
They don't care.
The teams and F1, the drivers do, but the teams and F1 don't seem to get on board until it affects them. And they only then fight for the thing that directly affects them. And it's very short-sighted. Like, the issues with the rules and with the regulations and the systems hasn't changed since 2021. And that is insane. The only thing that's changed since 2021 has been the race director. And in fact, I've said this a million times, the rule that allowed Michael Massey to handle the safety car the exact way he did in 2021 is still there. And if that doesn't point to the fact that they don't care about anything except just hanging someone, nothing will.
Yeah, and it's just there's a lack of interest, honestly. And we again, just a simple prediction. Next season, we are going to see this. And
we're going to have a 4-way, well, potentially a 4 or 5-way title fight for drivers.
Yeah.
And
4 or 5 drivers will be in contention for the title. And again, leaving the fan discourse to one side, the problem that's going to happen is there's zero confidence in the FIA. Mm-hmm. And that's only going to get worse because every race there's going to be one contentious issue. Look, we'll jump to that thing later. It's just every decision, if you sit down and scrutinize it, there are things that are wrong. You have to be and we cannot talk about it or call it out. Then what are we seriously doing? Why are we not doing it when something is not at stake? Just to make sure that your future is safe-proofed. You're not doing it right now. And all of them are going to regret it, honestly.
Yep. Yeah.
That's just how
honestly, when we get to next season and some controversial thing affects the title for one of these teams, I won't have any sympathy for them.
Yeah,
because they haven't tried to. Nothing. I don't care who it is. Red Bull, Mercedes, McLaren, Max, Norris, Leclerc, Russell, whoever it is. I won't have sympathy because it's like your team and you should have pushed harder for this when it didn't matter. So tough. Which penalty do we want to talk about first?
First, the Max one.
Max
covered the Max one.
Yeah. Here's my biggest issue with this. It's not actually the penalty at all. It's the handling and communication from the FIA that pisses me off the most about this. And I know we're going to talk into the George and Max side of it in a minute, but just what annoys me about this is the FIA brought the penalty forward, right? Basically, because George complained, and that's what we'll talk about.
Yeah.
But anyway,
that's fine.
The penalty was pushed, and the actual penalty that was called to be talked about was driving unnecessarily slowly, right? All the fans then talked about, because fans don't like to read documents or look at anything, was the slow lap part of this, right? Which I was like, that is not the point of the penalty. What they're talking about is the fact that he was driving unnecessarily slowly, which they want to talk about after, because this happens all the time. And normally the idea is, will there be a penalty or won't they, comes down to whether or not there is mitigating circumstances. Like, were you backing off repeatedly to a point where you couldn't drive over that delta? That is normally it, right? And everyone just kept going, oh, it's a slow lap, it's a slow lap, it's a slow lap. And I was going, guys, the penalty that they're discussing is for driving unnecessarily slowly. And then the FIA undermined even their own fucking argument by inviting George Russell to talk about the slow lap, fast lap impeding, and putting in the document that both of them were on a slow lap, which has nothing to do with the penalty that they brought them for. So why in God's name did they even mention that without putting at the top, okay, the penalty is for impeding and driving unnecessarily slowly? Because if you don't do that, what it looks like is you're going, okay, well, technically he was driving under the delta and there's no excuse for that, but he didn't impede anyone. So I'll tell you what, let's try and find some roundabout way to give Max some fairness here. And essentially that's what it looks like, and then makes nobody happy, because Max fans are pissed off that he got a one-place penalty, and everyone else is going, well, why did they put this in the fucking document in the first place? Because now it looks like one of the stewards who owns a Honda dealership is trying to help Max. And none of that is accurate. None of that is what happened. What they actually were looking at is two things: impeding and driving slowly. And they wanted to unearth this whole thing and have a conversation with both drivers. But because of the way they went about communicating it, they fueled the fire to cause everyone a nightmare and make it look like they were trying to make some big biased decision, when once again, they weren't. They're just fucking incompetent. So that's my little rant on the document thing, because it's ridiculous. It's so badly handled.
Okay, now do you think he should have been penalized?
Oh, Jesus Christ. The thing is, probably not. I think it should, to be honest, I don't think it even should have been put forward. But once again, the FIA caves to pressure from drivers and teams more than they do to their actual own rule book. Yeah. I think realistically, for impeding, no, because he didn't really impede George. Like, George was on a slow lap, they were coming through. To be honest, the one thing I will say is he was dawdling around a little bit. He was messing around a little bit on the racing line. So
the only reason he could have been penalized was driving dangerously or being a bit.
Well, look, I mean,
erratic driving is something that he could have been penalized for.
Yep.
If anything,
it depends on how much he was driving under the delta. But because
18 seconds, he was above delta, he was 18 seconds slower than the delta.
Yeah, that's what I mean. So he was quite slow under it. So, like, you could say, look, there's not enough mitigating circumstances for him to be driving that slowly on the racing line. No one else, I don't think, has got a penalty. I checked for it this year. But again, lots of people have been called, and it really depends on the circumstances. Lots of people have got penalties for impeding. So it just depends on which you're looking at. But again, the FIA, I don't know whether he should have got a penalty, because if you're calling him for impeding, slow lap, fast lap doesn't actually matter as much as people want to talk. Like, that was the big talking point. It doesn't actually matter. If you're impeding, you're impeding. And if you're on the racing line
impeding is you'd impede someone when they're on a push lap, right? He wasn't.
That's how we like to look at it, but according to the rules, technically not. Impeding is impeding, because you're also impeding someone who's preparing for a fast lap. So it doesn't actually matter. If you shouldn't be on the racing.
Really make a difference.
He was on the racing line going slowly.
That's the problem. That is impeding. For me, the biggest problem was, and again, it seemed like it, Max was almost not on the racing line, and just when George was speeding up, he moved.
Yeah.
It was a bit of a...
Look,
I don't know.
The simple thing is, the simplest way I could put it, if you want to go by the absolute rule book on what he was doing, right? The slow lap technically doesn't, as far as I'm aware, maybe I'm wrong on this, but as far as I'm aware, the rule book, it basically is just harsher if it's impeding on a fast lap than a slow lap. But you can still be impeding on a slow lap, because think about it this way. If someone's on a slow lap but coming up to the last corner and you're on the racing line, you've impeded them starting their fast lap, right?
Yeah.
So
but that's fine, right?
But that's my point. Fast lap, slow lap doesn't actually matter, because you're also impeding for preparations. It's just something that is taken more seriously when it's a fast lap, generally speaking.
Yeah, but honestly, I've never seen anyone get
Neither have I. But I'm just
impeding on a slower lap, right?
This is the point I'm getting to, which is,
the only thing is they check the delta. That's the only thing they have to keep in mind.
And that's what they called him for, but then brought all of this mess into it and made it just...
I think there's also a big problem here, because the time delta was supposed to be... the overall lap was supposed to be done in 1:40. Yeah. That's the time that was set. And if Max was already 18 seconds down, that he's not making that up in the rest of the lap.
No, definitely.
It was in S2, if I'm not wrong.
He was going slowly. So here's my final thing on it, which is, if we're going just purely based on my understanding of the rules, right? Maybe I'm wrong, because there's a lot of fucking rules now, a lot of details. But if you're going just by the rules, sure, he should have got a penalty. Do I think he should have got a penalty? No. Because to be honest with you, It's one of those things. He's going
Silly.
under the delta.
It's honestly silly.
It's also there's so many mitigating circumstances. There's so many mitigating. Sorry, There's so many mitigating circumstances. You need a good amount of fresh air or free air in this specific circuit. He had to let other people by. He knew George was coming up behind. He did move out of the way for George. George sped up and made it a bit more of an issue than it needed to be. There's all these mitigating circumstances where anyone with just two brain cells of common sense would go, look, sure, technically he's broken a rule, but there's so many circumstances here. Let's just give him a warning and let him off with it. Just forget about it. But what happened was the FIA, once again, just crippled the pressure. So, do I think it should have been a penalty? No. But under the rules, technically, yes.
Yeah, but that's where I think it becomes very, very tough because the sport becomes too regulated.
Yes.
I think that there are some areas where you have to just let it be. I mean, if we are going to start penalizing or impeding on slow laps, then it becomes a bit too much. It's like you have to be very, very careful about things that are not racing, honestly.
Yeah.
And I don't think we need to waste time on that bit.
No.
It doesn't make any sense. That's my two. Honestly, for me, the thing was, I mean, the surprising thing was how long it took, because I slept. I think it was 1:30 something I slept, and I think it was 5 a.m. or 6 a.m. here when they actually gave the whole thing out.
Yeah.
And that's too much time.
That's ridiculous.
Too much time, and that's late in the night.
It ridiculous.
Doesn't make... Anyways, and the thing is, for something honestly so inconsequential after what happened in the race, but just why do that? I'm not a fan of something like this, honestly.
No, it just look this is why we just need, I agree with George on this. We need full-time stewards, definitely, 100%.
Yeah.
I think most of the drivers agree on that, and we need a race.
The FIA doesn't, by the way.
Of course,
there's a reason behind it,
because they'll have to pay for it.
No, the reason is they don't want to pay for it.
Yeah. So they'll have to pay for it.
That's the only reason.
Yeah. But what to be honest with you, Formula One should just compromise on this because it'll help them in the long run, and just say, fine, we'll fucking pay for it. Just to make a point, they'll make themselves look good. It'll be better for the series. They should just do that.
Yeah, but that's the problem.
It's all
even
a political
the FOM. They don't care. What it comes on, the product for them is what they can sell. And all the... Look, we are sitting here talking about it, whatever views it gets and everything, the amount of name or notoriety F1 gets. It's good for them.
Yeah.
They treat it this way.
Yeah.
And I mean, I realized it yesterday because the kind of thing that happened throughout the weekend, it led to a jump in views on our website. And that is directly proportional to what happens in general.
Yeah.
It's a win for them. For FOM, it's a win. And they treat it like that. Anyways, enough of the Max Verstappen thing.
Do we want to talk about Max and George themselves?
No, later.
Okay.
Yeah. Right. Sorry, we're jumping a bit. The Lando Norris penalty. Let's just get
it out of the way. Yeah.
What did you make of it?
Okay, two simple points on it. One is he should have gotten a penalty for it. I think it's a slam dunk penalty.
Yeah.
That is the penalty for doing that. So he should have got a penalty for it. My only issue with it, to be honest, is one, how long it took, because that was absolutely ridiculous, and two, the fact that once again it was absolute indecision and a mess from the FIA, because not only should they have given it then and not had to wait for Max Verstappen to tell them about it once again, which, fair dues to Max, I mean, that's what a competitor should be doing, looking for every advantage. But not only should they have not waited for that, it shows that they weren't even paying attention to it, because I think there was at least 5 to 6 other drivers, maybe more, that also sped along there.
No. I've checked. I couldn't find a conclusive proof that anyone actually jumped. The thing is, you need to have a very clear... on the telemetry, a very, very clear throttle lift. Right?
Well, I just looked at a few and it didn't seem like they were lifting either. So I'd need to see the Tele-M, but yeah.
I saw on the video, by the way, it seems that Ferraris are not lifting, but on the telemetry, it seems they are.
Okay.
So maybe they've lifted just a little.
Yeah, just enough. That's the other stupidity about these yellow flags. Lifting, it's subjective. So it's if you just lift a little bit, is that enough? There's not actually There doesn't seem to be any sort of marker like you have to completely lift or you have to do this or whatever. It's very strange. You think for a safety rule it would be like clear cut.
What I don't get is why is a safe and again, this is something which should be very generic, because in MotoGP they've introduced it. A yellow flag flashes on the dash.
Yeah.
It wasn't flashing for Lando on when the yellow flag came, and that is a very, very. I think they need to bring that technology in, because
they have that technology though, so I don't know why it's not there.
It wasn't there, right? I'm pretty sure I saw the dash, and I specifically saw it because if it for me the first reaction was, because again I also see MotoGP a lot, so I have this tendency. Even there, as soon as there's a yellow flag, the dash turns yellow.
Yeah.
So it's very, very obvious.
In the cars, the yellow flashes up, because even in Baku, people were arguing like, oh well, he he should have seen the yellow up there, and he's saying I didn't see it, but then it's on his dash.
It went like this, yeah.
But Lando was like, it came on my dash, so people were like, how could he have lifted for that? Like, you can barely see it. He's like, it's on the dash, like you see it straight away. I think after,
why was it not here?
I'm pretty sure after 2020 or something like that, they made sure it was on the dash for all competitors. Because remember at Austria, there was that big thing, the big deal between Hamilton getting a penalty. I'm pretty sure. I'm pretty sure in 2021 or 2022 they've had it on the ECUs. So it's in the dash, so it's
why
there.
Was it?
That's something they need to look into. But the reality is, look,
I didn't really see it, by the way. I mean, for me, the first reaction was, is it visible on the dash? Just for a basic thing, right?
Yeah.
Your mind your attention just goes there.
It should be because it wasn't, and it should be because realistically for these drivers, the visibility is so terrible that it is hard for them to see, especially when the marker board is like way down the track. And it flashes for a minute.
For Lando, what happened was it was here, and he was almost past. So you might be able to see it, or you might not be able to see it.
So maybe there was a fault on his dash, but the fact is, like, the penalty's the penalty, and at the end of the day, it's like, if there was a fault on his dash or he didn't see it, like, again, if what you're saying is correct, that the other drivers all did lift, then there's no excuse. If there's 5 or 6 other drivers who didn't lift as well, then you need to look into, right, something went wrong here. But regardless, it should be, all right, well then those 5 or 6 drivers get a penalty as well, and we fix the issue. Like that's these safety rules are clear cut. It's like, you broke the rule, you get a penalty. Simple as that. My issue with the penalty is just a simple one of timing. They shouldn't have to wait for Max Verstappen to remind them again. What was it, 20 laps later? 22 laps later? Something crazy like that?
On lap 30, the infringement was there. On lap 31, the replays were shown to millions of viewers. Yep. Everyone saw this. You pinged me. You said Lando's in trouble.
Yep.
And I think almost everyone said that.
Yeah.
The FIA
I put up on Twitter, I was like, Lando's getting a penalty here, because I was like, this is slam dunk.
There's no way out of it.
Yeah.
It's as simple as that. For 20 laps, there's nothing. And the thing was, the whole the mirror falling off. I think it happened on 36th or 37th lap. That's the problem. And imagine if on 30th lap this happens, on 31st or 32nd lap, if Lando, I actually put this out, if Lando was given the penalty on lap 32, he pits, he doesn't pay, he does the penalty, comes out, he'll be right around where Lewis was in P5, P5, P6, something like that.
Yep.
And from there he can actually salvage a good result.
Yep.
Very easily.
Yep.
But what they did was they waited until the entire grid was completely contracted, and then he was pitted. He was so far back with much lesser laps to actually do something about it.
Yeah.
Again, the problem is here. That's where I think the McLaren attitude, it kind of pisses me off. Yeah. Because Christian Horner or a Toto Wolff will not let this fly.
No.
But you heard nothing from Horner. You pretty much heard. I think Stella's problem is he's too soft. He's very...
Horner and Toto would have been on the radio, not saying give us the penalty now, but would have been saying that's not a penalty and forcing the issue. Yeah. Basically making sure we get a decision now so that we can deal with it now and have, half a race to fix it.
Yeah.
And like realistically as well, the other thing is, with the way that penalty was served, if he had have gotten it there, like you said, one, he would have come out around P6, But then the safety car would have been called, so it would have been like a situation where it's like, right, now we're
once
back
he was
together
called
again.
out, once he was called, after that moment, Lewis and Carlos suffer a puncture. So both of them are out of the way. From P6, he jumps to P4.
And everyone's bunched.
And then everyone bunches together. It's an entirely different race.
Yeah. McLaren should have been on the radio, but...
Yeah.
But
that's McLaren, by the way. Yeah.
Yeah. But the FIA also should have... That should have been like, if you and I are literally
discussing
discussing
the championship, by the way.
Mm-hmm.
If somehow there's a Ferrari 1-2 in Abu Dhabi, this changes the championship.
Yep. Yeah.
That's... And imagine if the championship was still on, and this happened with Max.
Look, this is one of the things which is... Lando deserved a slam dunk penalty there, because it is just a slam dunk penalty. Like, there's no arguing it, and that is the penalty for doing that. It's a safety rule, tough shit. Like, you know, McLaren, Lando, if there's some sort of circumstance that caused that, fix it. Don't let it happen again, because that's just slam dunk. But what I love is F1 Twitter are all basically calling out Lando, but not even slightly mentioning the fact that, like, well, yeah, the FIA and McLaren probably should have been pushing this, because realistically, imagine a simple situation. But just imagine a simple situation of, if Max did that, right, and then got penalised 20 laps later and lost the race lead because the FIA waited until the end and had no chance to catch up. Can you imagine the outrage? The absolute outrage at him losing the win that way. So... yeah, it's just a shambles in every sense of the word. But yeah, I think, Lando deserved the penalty.
Yeah, by the way, to every driver fan that is watching right now, to be honest, this happens tomorrow to Max or Lewis or anyone. It's not because... Let's get one thing straight. It's not because it's a conspiracy or they're trying to target either of the drivers, because I saw that term a lot flying on Sunday.
Yeah.
It's very, very simple thing. They are incompetent. And maybe next time around, think on those lines and keep the toxicity under check.
Look,
because it's gone out of hand.
To be honest with you, I'm just done engaging with it, because like they literally went on a rampage about the one place grid drop. But then when Lando got that penalty, which again, I'm not arguing the penalty, he deserved it. But none of those same people are going, why did the FIA wait 20 laps to fuck Lando there? You know, so it's just, the reason I'm not engaging is it's such obvious, like,
confirmation bias.
Yes, yeah. That's all it is. Essentially, that's all it is. I think,
enough of this.
Yeah.
Now let's talk about Max, because wow, just wow. I mean, I think after what happened on Friday to an extent, and after the sprint, I think I saw a lot of people again just shitting on Red Bull. It's become, I mean, honestly, I think I showed you a tweet not a tweet, a DM as well, from a hardcore Max fan who actually said that a lot of Max fans are turning into cult Lewis Hamilton fans, because it's the same nonsense.
Yeah.
Hamilton fans abuse Mercedes over the years. Slowly and steadily, that's happening with not all Max fans, because
there's a loud chunk though,
a loud dump chunk, honestly. And I just I didn't really like that whole thing, because again, what happens, they turned the whole thing around. They turned the whole thing around from the sprint to qualifying. Max qualifies on pole or P2, either ways, and he wins the race, and he does it because of the performance in the car.
Yep.
How many people are talking about what Red Bull was able to accomplish? Zero.
Yep.
Everyone should be talking about what Red Bull was able to accomplish, not only the driver. Okay. By the way,
if Red Bull didn't turn this around, like, you know, it's very unlikely that McLaren like catch them with Norris, because McLaren is a shit show. But like, if Red Bull didn't turn this around, it could have been a lot more difficult for Red Bull to pull that
Max
off.
Max was struggling to keep up with Nico Hülkenberg in a Haas during a sprint.
Yep.
From that point, they've turned the car into a race winner.
Yep.
And if your entire thought process is, wow, this is entirely down to Max, then you don't know anything about the sport.
It's not how F1
Stop
works.
watching it, honestly.
Yeah, you're not going to enjoy it, because it's going to... it's just, look, again, I'm just kind of sick of engaging with it on Twitter, because it's just... it's obvious just agenda, and it's just boring because it's literally just when things go right, it's all Max doing it, and when things go wrong, it's all Red Bull's fault. Yeah. And it's the exact same as the Hamilton fans over those like the last couple of years, which is just when things go right, it's all Hamilton, and when things go wrong, it's Mercedes are causing the problems, or it's Toto Wolff, or in this case, it's Horner. So it's just like what frustrates me about the fandom, if I'm honest, is there's actually a few people who I genuinely thought were reasonable, and there's a few people who give some solid, good insights and takes, and then join this bullshit, and I'm just like, you know better. Like, you know, so that's when it frustrates me, when it's people who I think should know better, and they fall for it immediately and jump into it.
By the way, I think that's the whole point of honestly, that's the whole point of why we are doing this podcast.
Yeah.
Right? Because we cut through the bullshit. That's the whole point. That's the whole thing.
Which will piss some people off as well.
Yeah. Yeah. That we do a lot as well.
Because the problem is sometimes when you talk logic and you say, look, even something as simple as Lando deserved the penalty, but the FIA fucked him. People are like, oh, no, the FIA love Lando. And you're like, shut the fuck up. Like, that's not how it works. Like, you know, so people get annoyed at you over that.
Illogical.
If we say Hamilton's brilliant, we get shouted at. If we say Hamilton's shit, we get shouted at. So it's just, you know, part and parcel of the podcast. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, even, by the way, talking about Max and...
Brilliant display, by the way. That should be said. We didn't mention that.
I might, you know, maybe a wild prediction or a very early prediction. I think he wins the title next season.
I had a think about this.
Let me tell you why, by the way.
Yeah, you go.
I don't think any of McLaren, Mercedes or Ferrari are ready to win titles.
Mm-hmm.
I think the car performance, what we saw in, Qatar, it's only a couple of tenths. That's the gap between the top 4 teams.
Mm-hmm.
And what stands out is not only Max the driver, because he does. He's quite clearly the best driver in F1, but also the fact that Red Bull has the capability, and again, it's built over the years. It has the capability to win the small battles. They do not lose the small battles.
No.
And they're going to continue to win these small battles. And before you know it, it's 10 to 12 races. Max has won 7 of them, even though one would assume he's not had the fastest car forever.
Mm-hmm.
But the thing is, the team and the driver, they know how to work with perfection when it comes to, if there are 8 points on the table that you need, that your car is capable of in a race weekend, they aim for 10, they get 9.
Yeah.
While you have Mercedes, Ferrari and McLaren, if a car is capable of getting 25, they'll end up with 18, 15, 10, whatever. And that's a big thing. That's a big thing.
I would disagree on one thing, which is I do think out of all of the 4 teams, like I agree with you in one sense, which is I have been thinking that next year Red Bull will need to change something fundamental, right? And that will cause them big issues. And that could still happen. However, with the latest development of Ferrari and McLaren still bringing parts and upgrades, and Mercedes as well, it's not like anyone is kind of clearly pulling away. And Red Bull fixing their issues has put them basically in the fight still, like this weekend, where to a point where Max can actually make up the difference. Because as some people are unaware, this is an engineering sport, and then it's up to the drivers to maximize the car. If the car is shit, the driver can only do so much, right? So
struggle to keep up with Haas.
Yes, exactly. So that's just the way it is. But I think you're right. I think next year we're going to get a situation where the cars are very, very close. And I kept thinking that the way Ferrari, Mercedes and Red Bull were developing, there's a good chance McLaren could be a clear leader, which would allow them then to make up for some of the, being shit. You know, it would allow them for being shit in other parts.
Yeah.
Right?
However, operational inefficiency is what you're talking about.
Yes, you can kind of make up for some of that if your car is just blazingly fast. Mercedes made some dog shit issues over the years, but because their car was so fast, you could make up for it. You know, we've seen this tons of times. But I think you're right. I think we're going to see cars that are quite close. And even if Red Bull are 4th fastest, if 4th fastest is 3/10 off the lead, let's say, right? That is an area where operational brilliance from Red Bull, which they've shown time and time again, and Max just not making a single mistake over the course of a season where you have Ferrari, Red Bull Ferrari, McLaren and Mercedes taking points off one another, Max just putting in like show after show and Red Bull just not making mistakes over the course of a season, sure, could win it. Like,
exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. For a long, for me, the only worry is if the Red Bull is too far back. Because if it is too far back, then he can't compete, right? Then it's just it's wishful thinking.
Really it's out of his hands unless you do have a situation where he consistently scores decent points, like picks up podiums where there's a fluctuation. Plane overhead, right? It was a plane or something. Sounded like, I don't know. No, it sounded like things were moving. It was like a plane moving overhead.
Okay,
but yeah, like he could, if he's a bit further off, but you have a situation where he is consistently in one place, and say Red Bull or Mercedes win one weekend and then are shit another weekend, Ferrari win one. Like if you had them dropping around him, he could still win just consistently. Because look at 2023, like everyone bigs up Hamilton, like, oh, he won in the third fastest car. But my argument was, 2023 he came second in the championship, right? Didn't he? Third in the championship. But in the third fastest car, and that was the argument. Fastest car. No, it wasn't. It was the third fastest car. However, it was consistently the third fastest car. Whereas McLaren and Ferrari were nowhere at the start of the season. Aston was the second fastest, and then it switched. So because it was consistently third fastest, it basically became the second best car.
Yeah.
And that could happen for Max. He could win the championship in the fourth fastest car because the first, second, and third fastest are swapping everywhere all the time and making shit calls.
Yeah, and the problem is the leak points like anything. Just anything.
Yeah.
George was P8 or something after the first pit stop. What's going on?
Yeah.
And then Lando basically squandered a race where he would have been either a winner or a P2.
Yeah.
Oscar had a poor qualifying. Carlos was Carlos. He'd be replaced by Lewis, which is good luck at this stage.
If they get this Lewis, Jesus.
Oh boy. Yeah. More on that later.
Well, more on that in like 2 minutes. So.
Yeah.
That's our next topic, I think.
Yeah. I mean, even, by the way, again, Leclerc also was brilliant this weekend.
Mm-hmm.
P2 in the fourth fastest car, he also did that. That's also takes a lot of credit.
Didn't make mistakes and kept going. This is the thing.
Kept it on the road.
And I think George as well deserves credit there, because George's issues weren't his issues. It was a team mistake.
7-second pit stop.
Yeah.
What are we doing?
Which, when the cars are this close, just completely screws you.
Yeah.
So.
And the point is, George has also had these issues throughout the season. It's just that he does not have the vocal, annoying fan base that points out everything that goes wrong with him.
Yeah.
George versus Max, by the way.
I think...
Wait. Let's talk. I shared with you the...
Yeah.
Did I?
Yeah. So the Netflix
apparently
thing?
It's from a friend that's in the paddock right now. So, not right now, yesterday. So Netflix has caught it on camera. It is Max going up to George after he got the penalty. So apparently he's saying, you and the FIA stewards can be fuck buddies, and I don't care.
Yeah.
If I see you at T1, I'll send you into the gravel.
Yeah. The thing is, like,
oh god,
George and Max and a couple of other Red Bull staff talked about this, was that George went into the stewards room and was like a demon. Like, he was pushing for Verstappen to get a penalty. And like the amount of fans then I saw whining about, oh, George, like, whatever, blah, blah, blah. You know what? I love that. That is exactly what an F1 driver should be. He is the perfect F1 driver in many ways, because on track he is ruthless. He doesn't give an inch. He is one of the drivers like Leclerc that Verstappen knows if the two of them come alongside, he's not backing out the way anyone else will, and Leclerc won't either. That is something they have in common. Pace-wise, George is probably a little bit less than Verstappen and Leclerc, but close enough that he could give a real fight. And he's just ruthless in every sense. He will call out things like Max did with Norris. George will do that. And behind closed doors, as we found out from the stewards meeting, George is a ruthless animal. And then, like,
why not?
Max
I'm not.
First of all, by the way, they're supposed to do.
Yeah. First of all, by the way, the entire reaction from Max, I love it.
Yeah.
I mean, drivers should hate each other. I fucking hate the era that we are in, where everyone's playing paddle and whatever that new game is.
They used to take
And
the
hanging
piss out of
with
each other
They
so
are
much.
basically they're basically flatmates, and apparently Albon has a house here, and I think it's Carlos who lives right opposite him.
Yeah.
In Monaco. I don't like that, because the era that we were from, look, Lewis, Alonso, Vettel, these guys did not used to talk to each other.
They hated each other. They were like proper competitors.
And they always snide remarks, everything.
Vettel showed the perfect way to do it. We are fierce competitors who respect one another, but we don't hang out. Like, we're not hanging out with one another. You know, we're not flying home together. You know, like,
exactly.
That's not happening.
It's just, I love it. And you know, honestly, name one driver. I mean, I'm talking about the top drivers, not like Lance Stroll and others. Name one driver who would have not done what George did. One top driver.
Norris.
I think he would have.
Maybe now after this season.
Yeah.
But earlier in the season, definitely not.
Yeah. Earlier he might not have. Now he's not giving an inch.
I think they would have just
will not give an inch.
Yeah. The difference is I think other drivers would do it more subtly. George just ruthlessly doesn't care. Like, George just doesn't give a shit. The thing is, George, the reason I was saying he's perfect is because George is the ideal person you want in an F1 team, which is he is absolutely ruthless on track. He will look for every advantage. Two things that people love about, including us, love about Max Verstappen. Ruthless, looks for every advantage. Even like 20 odd laps on that safety car, he's going, did they look into that Norris penalty? Like, that's, you know, that is ruthlessly looking at every. George does that as well. And we've seen George making his own strategy calls. Like, you know, brilliant in every sense of the word. But then you put him in front of a camera, never bashes the team, talks about how brilliant the team is.
Yeah.
He is the perfect person that you want in an F1 team because he's marketable, or at least he will be when he starts winning more, I think, because you know.
He still is. He's decent enough.
Yeah, but if you put him in front of a camera, he's not fucking up. Like, he's telling you all the marketing terms, talking through it, everything.
He's basically from the Toto school of racing, and born and bred there. That's how he's been.
But and I think that's probably a good thing for him, right? Because how many people, including Toto Wolff, underrate him? They underestimate what he can do. But then when he gets on, and I think that's probably why Max was so annoyed about it, because he's probably like, this guy's so nice out there and everything. You don't know what he's fucking like behind the scenes. You know? Like,
that's what he's saying. He basically called him two-faced.
And
I think every driver is. I just think every driver is.
But that was something that Daniel Ricciardo was famed for, right? Daniel's this big smiling guy.
Honey badger.
But then when he put his fucking helmet on, he was a monster up until McLaren destroyed his confidence completely.
Took the honey out. I don't mind, honestly. And you know, one of the hilarious thing is Alonso stirring shit up. I just loved it.
He just loves it though.
He's saying, I think he said that the penalty was not fine and everything. But look, I can guarantee you, I can bet my bottom dollar, if Alonso was in Russell's place, he would have done each and everything and some more.
Same. Yeah.
And some more.
The only difference is with Alonso would have also been out saying he did it, smiling in front of the camera.
He would come out to the media and tell them everything. And he would basically play the mind games to such an extent that Max remembers who Alonso is.
Look, I just think George is smart enough to know that we're in an era where teams and sponsors don't like you being a prick in front of the camera. It's like we were talking about earlier, this whole thing of like buddy and being nice and everything.
Yeah.
George knows that is the game that needs to be played. So in front of the camera, he's we're doing all this and it's fine, the team and you know everything nicely. And then behind the scenes, he's like, where is that fucking prick? I'm going to take him down. You know, and that's great. Like, cool.
That is how it should be. Honestly, look, that is how it should be. The biggest problem for George right now is that Mercedes is probably not performing at the level at which he is. That's the reality. He is outperforming the car. He is basically, if we talk about 2024, he's been the shining light. The two races that Lewis has won, easily it could have gone to George.
Yep.
Silverstone could have gone to him. Even the race in Spa, Ideally, could have
his.
ended up on a podium or a P4, P5, but that was just very harsh and unlucky. That happens.
That was literally just not his not his fault. Just like this race wasn't his fault. He's had a lot of bad luck recently in this year.
People don't remember, right?
Yeah. This is the thing. They talk about like Hamilton being sabotaged. George has had so much bad luck this year with that team, and it's like, and then on top of that, like it's all the focus from Toto's been on Hamilton this year as well. So it's like just I don't know. It's just
Should we talk about Hamilton?
Yeah, let's get onto it. Just if you enjoyed that comment, I enjoyed that George Russell wankfest below. Probably don't actually. You'll get us banned somehow. But yeah, let's talk about Lewis.
Yeah.
God, he's awful.
So that's one of the worst races I've seen from him, and I've seen almost his entire career.
We have seen. Both of us have watched his entire career,
almost entire career. And
yeah.
I mean, I've seen worse races from him.
I've seen part of his junior career as well. I remember watching him and Vettel go toe to toe in F3. I think
F3,
yeah. Because Vettel skipped F2, right? Like, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, Vettel didn't do GP2. He was straight in Formula 1. It's for me. I think you've seen the post. For me, the biggest problem was I'm done with the mollycoddling that he's getting from the media.
Yeah.
I dug up a post, by the way, an article by Martin Brundle in 2019. I think it was June or something, where he was saying that Sebastian Vettel is starting to lose his pace and his spatial awareness and peripheral vision, something on those lines. Vettel was 34 at that stage.
Okay.
And that's the kind of statements that were already being made about him. And here we've had Lewis. Here's what he did this race. He jumped at the start. He was speeding through the pit lane. There would have been another penalty, by the way, when he almost brake checked Norris. There would have been 3 penalties.
Yep.
Ideally, it could have gone. The problem is, if you're going to check out from a race or from a team, then that's not the team's fault. That's just not the team's fault. And I actually checked the whole thing with the telemetry. And again, we'll get to the Ocon thing as well later. The problem with Lewis is he just does not have any confidence in the car.
No.
And that's just the reality of it.
Yeah.
And you want to believe it or not, that's just the reality. He's not comfortable. And for any driver to tame a car in these regulations, you have to bust your ass consistently, work hard on it.
Yeah.
It has happened quite a few times this weekend with Lewis that he's come into the weekend, FP1, he is pretty much on pace with George. The thing is, that happens usually because he's naturally talented.
Yeah.
He's
a fast driver,
Yeah. FP1 is more about just going through that. Then comes the hard yards where you have to consistently find the right fit, work on the setup, get things on board, and then by qualifying, you're there.
Yeah.
That is where Lewis has missed out a lot.
Well, George summed it up perfectly, didn't he? Like, George basically explained what the issue was, and it makes perfect logical sense when you think it out, which is Lewis, basically, when he gets uncomfortable with the car, is looking for more and more extreme setups to bring it back into a window, whereas George is just kind of working with the car in kind of its comfortable setup windows.
Yeah.
And therefore, obviously, you're going to get even bigger gaps because not only has Lewis lost confidence, he's also trying things that clearly aren't working.
Yeah.
So and that's on Lewis. Like that, he can't blame George or Mercedes for that. He's pushing for them. Like they're not going, why don't you try this mad suspension setup? Like
he's doing that.
He's accepting it, or at the very least, he's accepting it, knowingly accepting it. So he can't blame the team when he's knowingly accepting this.
And I think, ideally, he should have. Don't race. Honestly, I think he should not have even raced in Qatar. The way he was, look, I'll say it again. It's not like he's not past it. Not at all. He's not willing to put in the work. And you do not work well with these cars if you're not willing to put in the work. And it's why it is hurting him more right now is he's trying. Look, the lesser work you do, it gets worse. Mm-hmm. And he's checked out for a long time. He had a great race at Vegas because the car was a rocket ship. Honestly, it was a rocket ship there. He didn't really have to put in the hard yards that were needed. He got into the car. He was right on it. The car was perfect. Everything's fine. Go for it. Whenever he's had to work for it, he's not willing to do it. And if you're not willing to do that kind of work, you're the moment when he said, let's retire the car, Toto was fuming. Just cut to him and like, what the fuck are we doing?
Yeah.
Like, what the fuck are we doing here?
It's like the amount of money you're paying, and it's like just, it's like the old joke of, it's like, the footballer gets paid like $200,000 a week, and the manager's like, would you do half an hour for us? And he's like, I'm not sure. That's like, come on, get in the car and race. You're
Seriously,
paid enough. Like you're paid. He is getting paid at the very least $2 million per race. Realistically, when you think about it, when you break it down to a race pace, because he's on around 50 million.
42, 43.
Yeah. So you're talking roughly $2 million per race. For $2 million a weekend, I want you to get in the car and fucking do your best. And if you tell me you want to give up, no, I'm paying you $2 million fucking dollars. You wait until I tell you you're giving up. I'm sorry, but tough shit. Like I've said this a few times, and look, you know what? I have a lot of respect for Hamilton. I think he's one of the best drivers on the grid. I think, as you said, natural talent is still there, but his attitude and the way he's dealing with Mercedes this year has really pissed me off, because it's like the fans doing it is one thing, and I will laugh about that and joke and piss and wind them up as much as I do, right?
Yeah.
But when the driver does it, when he knows the reason he has 7 titles is, one, because of his talent, fair enough, but mainly it's because the team gave him a car and an operations team to allow him to extract that performance every year.
And put a shit driver in the other car.
Yeah, basically, that helps as well. Like, at the end of the day, Max Verstappen is not winning a title in a Haas, right? He gets his titles because he is talented enough, and because the team builds a fucking brilliant car and operates it well. You need all 3 of those things to go well, and it's a bigger difficulty for the team to get it right than it is for the driver to show up and do a good job. Yeah. Like, simple as. So Lewis owes more to Mercedes than Mercedes owe to him, and the way he's treating Mercedes this year, after, by the way, he left them. It's not like they forced him out. He fucking left them. So it's like, it's just, it's literally like me breaking up with someone. It's like me breaking up with someone and they're living with me for a year, and every day I'm just walking downstairs going, that fat bitch is still upstairs. Like, what are you, like, that's me being a prick.
Exactly.
And you should be called out for doing that. Like, that's just
a lot of these things. He says that I'm just low now, and then he says I've not lost the pace. You're giving mixed signals, but the problem that happens with him is, and you see it on the telemetry, and that's why I actually called out why I felt that maybe there was something fishy with the Alpine of Ocon, and why it's not the case here, because with him the lap starts from the first breaking point onwards. You just see the car is not there. Mm-hmm. Either he's not comfortable or whatever, he's leaking lap time at every point. There's literally no point where he's quicker than George, and one of the biggest reasons behind it is he's not comfortable. Yeah. Qatar was a track where you need confidence, and he had none of it.
Yeah.
And what pissed me off, honestly, as soon as he said that let's just retire the car, the kind of, that level of coddling from both Jensen and Crofty, for fuck's sakes. Why are we doing that?
It's just, look,
are they ever going to call him out? Can anyone call him out?
Well, we can.
That's the
but
problem,
no one else
right?
seems to want to, apart from Max fans and us.
Yeah,
it's one area where we seem to agree on. Look, I just know. Like, it's like if this was just happening in these last couple of races, like where he's blaming the team consistently, and like admitting at points he's not good enough, but then just basically blaming the team constantly.
Yeah.
If this was happening in the last 3 races, I'd kind of understand in one way, because it's frustration, you're leaving the team, and realistically at this point all of the effort moves towards George, because naturally it's going to.
Yeah.
But the problem is he's been doing it all season, and he's also been doing it at points where he's throwing shit on the team, and it's like, mate, your teammate is qualifying on pole. Like, so shut up. Like, it's not the car, it's you. Like, and if you can't get on top of the setup, that's your problem. That's not the team. Like, the team is there to help you, but you have to accept some responsibility. And the fact is, there's going to be a lot of Hamilton fans who are like, oh, well, he develops a team around him. I'm sorry, even he called bullshit on that in 2021 when he when he was in a title fight for the first time in years, like a real title fight for the first time in years, and he actually showed up to a weekend and said, yeah, I was in the simulator for the first time in like 3 years because I actually have to do some work now. Like, those were his words, not mine. So, like, just him building a team around him and like all the work he put in, I'm sorry, but bollocks. And I don't call Hamilton out on this because he is a brilliant driver. He's been amazing for the sport. I loved watching Lewis over the years. Yeah. But if you're going to call the team out on shit like this when the team is delivering 1-2s and poles with the other driver, like, I'm sorry, but I'm going to call you out on your bullshit then.
Yeah.
Because you can't have it both ways.
Honestly, it's your fault. There's no two ways about it. Look, if he's not willing to put in the work, Ferrari is going to be a shit show. There's no other ways about it.
Yeah, he's going to have to.
He cannot go into that team, and I don't think he will, because look, he knows. I think I'm hoping that he has the same butterfly as he had when he came to Mercedes, because I remember in 2013 when he came to Mercedes, he was willing to put in the work, he was willing to slog. Yeah. As simple as that.
Yeah.
What his idea was, and he expected the worst, by the way. I think we also... I always thought that 2014 is going to be good for Mercedes because the PU thing was already gaining momentum. Everyone knew that the V6 turbo was going to be where Mercedes would have an edge.
Yeah.
2013 was where
we didn't expect it to be as good as it was. the thing.
Yeah, that bit hurt, honestly.
As a Vettel fan, it hurt quite a lot.
Yeah. I mean, 2014 Australian GP is the race I remember, and oh God. Yeah. For me, the thing was, this is going to be a long year.
I think this is the thing, though, which is like, it's not even throwing hate at Hamilton. It's actually more, you know what it feels like to me? Because the only reason I'm getting annoyed about it is because it feels like to me, you know, when a parent says, I'm not angry, I'm just disappointed. That's what this is. It's because I expect more from Lewis, because Lewis has always he's had his moments of frustration, which every driver has, but he's generally backed the team. And this year he's just thrown the team under the bus at so many occasions when it's clearly his fault. Yeah. And I think if this was Lance Stroll or fucking, like, I don't know, if this was Lance Stroll or Magnussen or someone like that has had, maybe Magnussen's a poor choice there because he's actually a decent guy. But like if this was Lance Stroll or so I'm trying to think of another prick of a driver, Mazepin, you'd be like, I'm just annoyed at you, but I expect it, so it's just kind of like go away. It's because I expect more from Hamilton. Hamilton knows better. He knows what that team has given him. I expect more from him, and that's the issue, I think.
Again, that's again, by the way, this is not entirely my view. I have a slightly different view on this, but a fan that I was talking to, so what his view is that, look, what we hear from the fans, it permeates from what Lewis has said in the past or what he thinks as well. Those are the same things that come out. And apparently he thinks he's the reason behind Mercedes' success. And while, okay, he has a role to play, but if he thinks he was the reason behind Mercedes being an 8-time world champion, I think he's wrong. He's just wrong.
To be honest with you,
if that is his thought, honestly, if that is his thought process, if he thinks he's built this team to where it is, he's entirely wrong. This team would have been here.
It'll be fun next year if George wins the title then, won't it?
Imagine if that happens, right? I don't know. Somewhere I think there's a lack of reality in him, that he's not able to understand the fact that if he had not made that move in 2013 and moved to Mercedes, it was a gamble, of course. We all know it was a gamble. Yeah. But it worked, and it worked brilliantly.
And it was a gamble, to be fair to Lewis, that other drivers who were in better positions didn't take. And I love the amount of people who are like, oh, well, they didn't offer it to Vettel or you know, and I'm just
Here's
like,
the order.
How stupid
Fernando
do you have
Alonso,
to be?
Sebastian Vettel, Lewis Hamilton, and then Nico Hülkenberg. That was the order.
Yeah.
That
like, are you like? Do you genuinely believe that the German team wouldn't offer the current German world champion a drive? Like, are you that stupid to think that? And like at that point, Hamilton was a one-time world champion who hadn't won a world championship in 3 years.
His stock was at an all-time low at the point.
I wouldn't say all-time low, but it was, well, I suppose
He was
compared to
coming
the
up-
highs. Yeah, yeah.
I'm comparing it to 2011. 2011 was he looked Button dominated him.
Mm-hmm.
And again,
True,
by the way,
yeah.
there are a lot of these LH fans on X who have this amazing cope about the kind of excuses that they come up with. But this is just the reality. 2011, Button was the better driver, hands down. And at that point, it was a very clear order. It was Alonso and Vettel, they were the top two drivers. And then you had Lewis, who was almost considered as someone who is brilliant on his day. He can beat both of them.
Yeah.
But is he consistent enough? That was always a question around him. And that was also a function of McLaren being what
Look,
it is.
the simple fact is, if Lewis didn't go to Mercedes, like, people will talk about maybe he would have won another title if he had gone to Ferrari or whatever, but I think the simple fact is, if he hadn't have gone to Mercedes, I don't think he was getting a Ferrari seat. Like, there was no opening.
Yeah,
for
he
it.
wasn't.
Because by the time an opening would have come, you would have been looking at 2015. So by that point, like, you know, where would his stock be? Like, it would have been another 4 years without any titles or whatever. You
And
know,
he would
like,
have been teamed up with Button, who was right next to him. I mean, there wasn't really much of a difference between the two drivers.
Yeah, yeah.
That's just how
Plus,
it is.
how bad McLaren was in 2014. If he
In
hadn't have
2013.
left, 2014, I mean, if he hadn't have left by that point, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, his
Oh,
stock,
God, yeah.
we know how F1 works. His stock would have dropped. So, look, for Hamilton, to end this off, Hamilton has done an absolutely spectacular job of his racing. He has taken every opportunity by the balls and done an amazing job. He is a highly talented driver, but the way he's acting this year, it's made me lose a bit of respect for him. It's just, it's not like, it's not
unprofessional.
Yeah, and
Honestly, that was my post. For me, the whole thing was, you're the highest paid driver in F1 right now. Like, any privilege, again, people have a whole lot of issue with the word privilege, but any privilege that is actually available to a Formula 1 driver right now, it goes to Lewis.
Yeah.
He's sought after in every which way. If you put 20 drivers and you have 100 questions that the media is going to ask, 90 will be to Lewis, without a doubt.
Yeah, yeah.
That's how big he is. And again, he's built it, everything. But there's a certain level of professionalism that comes with it. And again, maybe it was a moment of weakness and everything, but it just reflects the thought process that is there. He's just waiting to leave the team. And honestly, he's leaving such a shit impression in terms of, look, he's getting dominated.
He just,
by
look,
George.
if he does this again at Ferrari next year, and he, like, the thing is at Ferrari, one of the things at Ferrari is you get a lot of leeway if you're performing, but if you're not performing and you're acting like this, that contract's going to end very, very quickly, and Ferrari has more than enough money to cancel it.
I mean,
So-
they paid Kimi 40 million, I think, to just sit out for
Yeah,
a season.
so like, I think Hamilton fans are going to get a bit of a slap in the face if they think that Ferrari will treat Hamilton like Mercedes have. It's not going to happen. If Hamilton goes in and dominates Leclerc, which I don't personally think is going to happen in any which way, but if he does, it'll be amazing to watch. Then he'll get whatever leeway he wants. Like, he can kind of, Mercedes or Ferrari will make a lot of, you know, compromises. If he goes in and he's acting like he is now and driving like he is now, Ferrari will buy that contract out before 2026. Like, Ferrari is not a team that is afraid to make those decisions. So, you know, anyway.
Look, for me, I think ideally, and I think he also calmed down after the race and he said that, don't judge me on my weekdays and judge me on how I bounce back. And again, it's fine. I think there's a point where you should give him some leeway. It's just that I think it's been 4 or 5 times where he said he cannot wait for Christmas.
I don't know though. Isn't that's
such a
kind of
disgusting thing to say?
Isn't that
honestly,
kind of a bullshit statement though? Because that is literally why I think I have such high praise for Verstappen as like one of the best drivers since Schumacher, which is, if I judge him on his bad days are fucking brilliant. You know, that's how he reacts.
I've not seen Verstappen at any point in time say that I want to just retire from the race.
We've seen him frustrated, like in Hungary, but he acts a different way to it. He gets angry, which he then self-reflects and tones down. A lot of credit to Verstappen there, but that's the thing. Like, if Hamilton wants to be judged on his good days,
just look at Alonso. He finished P7 in this race.
I don't know.
Just
let's.
I mean, And
Yeah.
only one with actually the presence of mind to switch to the medium tires.
Yeah.
Do a second stop
We
in the safety car.
we said 10 minutes of Lewis bashing, but it's been a
Apologies,
solid
guys.
25.
Guys, apologies. It
because
happens.
we knew it was coming, right? We knew the two of us would be bashing Hamilton here because I think both of us agree. You can't treat your team like that when they've given you. Like, it's one thing if George and him were both running around in that place. Then it's like, okay, fair enough.
For you, the problem is, for me, I've seen and admired the way Michael treated Ferrari. And I think you've seen and admired how Vettel conducted himself in different teams. He never threw Ferrari under the bus, or I think that was wrong of him. He should have.
In 2019, he did allude to the fact that they were cheating, and then all of a sudden... If you want to talk about sabotage...
Other than that one time. But the point was that he always... I think the best part of him is, and something that I think Otmar talked about, he was so methodical, but the level of professionalism in every which way he conducted. But again, Vettel kind of modeled his entire driving and his career around Michael. And Michael was the same way. And you see that kind of things. It's just... Maybe that's the kind of expectation we have, and that's why it does disappoint us.
It's just like he can be hard on the team as long as he's performing. That's fine. Like if you're performing,
Alonso comes in and says Aston Martin is fucking pathetic. That car sucks. They give me a hunk of junk.
Yeah,
we listen because he's smashing
his
mid out of the water.
You know exactly what type of operator that Lawrence Stroll is, right? He's obviously a nepotistic guy, but at the same time, he expects the best. And he will look at Alonso complaining and turn to the team and say, well, Alonso delivered. Why aren't you?
Yeah.
He can complain all he wants. He's doing his job.
Yeah.
That's fine. I will have that attitude as well. This is a competitive sport. If Lewis was delivering and putting poles and going, guys, this car is shit, you're like, well, fair enough. Mercedes need to get to the job then if he's complaining. But when you're running in 10th and your driver, your teammate's on pole, you need to shut the fuck up. Like, you need to stop talking. Like, it's like we said in Las Vegas when he turned around and said, well, if I had to qualify better, I would have breezed past George. And my response to that is then, well, then fucking qualify better. Like, shut up. Like, that's like me going, well, if I had trained for 15 years, I could beat Conor McGregor in the ring. It's like, shut the fuck up and fucking train then. Like, what are you talking about? Like,
I think for everyone concerned right now, I think even Mercedes is kind of on the same boat where everyone is like, let's just end this thing in the most peaceful way as possible.
Yeah.
That's the only thing that they are trying to do right now. Once that is done, I think let's just hope that the Ferrari stint is good because look, no one wants Lewis on the grid is always a better thing than Lewis off the grid.
Yes. Agreed.
I fucking hope that Lewis versus Leclerc, if that happens, wow. Just honestly, just wow.
I hope he comes back. I hope he comes back. But to be honest, if this is
Max
his way...
has given his blessings already. And I think he has a fair point where he said that the motivation is a key factor. Yeah, and he's right. That's what we've said as well, that he's checked out.
I just hope he fixes this attitude before he goes to Ferrari, because if he goes into Ferrari, which he probably will, but if he goes into Ferrari with a similar attitude, you and I have watched Ferrari for long enough to know that's not going to work. Like, it doesn't matter who you are. In fact, even if you were a title-winning champion at Ferrari, or they're still not going to give you the benefit unless you are speaking with the team. That's just who they are.
Yeah.
No one is bigger than Ferrari. No one.
Hope they realize. Hope he realizes, because I think it's going to be... I think there are a lot of cultural shock he's also going to when he moves to Italy.
Yeah.
Giorgia Meloni's country, which is...
Speaking of shit shows, I guess we move on to your favourite driver, Ocon.
Oh, God.
Deserved. Okay, he's useless.
First your take, then I'll just rant, because...
Honestly, I think they should get rid of both drivers before Abu Dhabi, personally, but,
I think they should get rid of the team, honestly.
Yeah.
Yeah,
do you remember we said there was that rumour going around about the Alonso retiring because there's like an Alpine event or whatever? I genuinely am thinking that there is a solid chance that at the end of Abu Dhabi, they're just like, right, Alpine's gone, welcome high tech. Like, it would not surprise me at this point.
Paul Aaron is signed. Paul Aaron is a high-tech guy. So I think it's happening. It's happening mostly. I think it's probably going to happen in 2026. 2025 will be the last year of Alpine.
Yeah, because the engine's
mediocre.
Still there. I wouldn't be surprised though if at the end of the season it becomes Alpine high tech for a year and then transitions into full on high tech for 2026.
Could be.
That wouldn't surprise me at
Could
all.
Yeah. So what do you make of the whole thing with the? First of all, what do you? Yeah, first you go ahead, then I'll talk about it.
Look, I think clearly this makes sense for even Ocon, like him being there for Abu Dhabi.
Before that, what do you make of the sudden fluctuation in pace?
It seems to me a lot of the time, like, I mean, at the end of the day, upgrades when you're that far back do make a big difference, and it does seem to me like as soon as this decision was made, Gasly has gotten a lot of the upgrades, and I think that's probably helped with the pace. Like, we're in an era where, you know, everyone's converging. So what might seem like a small upgrade, like a front wing, for example, can make a big difference on track to the balance of the car, especially. So I do think there is an argument for Ocon that, look, he's getting the upgrades first, so he's making the difference, you know. But I do think what's happened is there's also been that knock on, like, you know, bashing heads, confidence, falling out. All of that behind the scenes probably hasn't helped Ocon either. With his performances lately. And I think there's the tangible of upgrades and there's the intangible of like confidence falling out with the team, you know, all of these things, which he has an excuse for, which Hamilton doesn't. So yeah, I think that's fair. And to be honest, the other thing is when it comes to like the excuses that Ocon makes, I kind of do have to say, like, when you're looking at a team like Alpine, you kind of go, well, yeah, probably. Like, when you're looking at Mercedes, you're like, Mercedes just don't have a reason to do that, and that's not how they operate. When Alpine do things, you're like, yeah, they would just make a driver look shit because it would make their decision look better. That is the exact type of thing Alpine would do.
Flavio would do, right?
Yes, like 100%.
Yeah, so what has happened is, again, this is entirely based on the kind of... I first didn't really catch on to it because, look, the Alpine has been off the radar for the most part.
I mean, until Brazil, basically.
Yeah. And so I think he talked about it I think it was last weekend only in Las Vegas. So he said that I'm not able to understand how I'm losing almost half a second to Gasly out of traction.
Yeah.
He said at every other point there's zero issues. Both of us are level in terms of performance. There's literally no gap. And first of all, it's very hard to understand how a driver can lose half a second, even though, well, Ocon has been driving the Renault engine since 2019. So he's probably the more attuned driver when it comes to traction and everything.
It's not a drivability issue anyway of the engine.
It should not be that. And so I checked the telemetry and he's right. The entire lap time that he was losing was out of traction. Entire lap time. Now, what that means or not is something I didn't really delve into too much.
I think it's obvious.
The problem was it happened this weekend as well.
Yeah.
It's entirely out of traction. And again, in qualifying, ultimately, I think by qualifying, he probably knew what was going on.
Gasly had the new front wing, right? The new shorter nose and front wing, I think.
That was there.
Which could change the whole balance of the car.
It should. But the problem was that it's the same weakness in in almost every qualifying lap, or if you do the direct comparisons, it's the same thing. Why is he losing almost half a second? And look, there are multiple ways to go about it, but my suspicion kind of, again, it's an entirely conspiracy theory. I think it does appear that they were arm twisting Ocon into finally when he does give up. And I think he kind of gave up after Qatar.
Yeah.
They were having a conversation before that. This is by F1.com. So I think what Flavio wants to do is he wants to test how good Jack Doohan is. Because he wants to lure Franco Colopinto into the team.
Yeah.
So
they
just
were
to do
talking
that,
to Franco anyway, weren't they? So they were in talks.
But, Jack also has a contract, right? So for them the biggest problem. Plus, there's also the thing that Paul Aaron is also there. Paul Aaron is a high tech guy, Estonian, so maybe that also plays a role. And I think what has happened is, and again, this is not really based on. We have some proof in terms of telemetry, but we don't really have the substantial proof. We can't really prove anything. It's a bit weird that out of the blue, the driver that was dominating in the first part of the season is nowhere.
Yeah.
It went a bit weird.
Well, I mean, look, the thing is, like we've talked about with Hamilton in a way, which is like as soon as you're leaving, they can start locking you out of driver meetings, out of different things.
But look, for Lewis, you can see that actually, Lewis from the start of the season has had a deficit to George. It's not like all of a sudden Lewis now has a deficit. He's had the deficit since the beginning.
But the thing is as well, it's also, like I said earlier, it's a different way of operating with these teams as well. Like Mercedes is in a position where they want to maximize both. And it doesn't matter who's in the seats at the minute. They've got their next driver lined up. They know what their future is. They're trying to keep sponsors and everything aboard. Alpine, on the other hand, is like they have more reason to make it look. They're just the type of team where they're like, we've made a decision and we want to prove it's the right decision.
Yeah,
like that's the kind of
not
thing
only
Flavio
that. I
does.
think if you're trying to sell a team to the highest bidder or to someone who is in high tech, what you're trying to do ideally is try to show that the driver that you have kept
is
much better than the one that is leaving.
Yeah. That's the thing.
Played a role, right?
This is the thing for me. It's like when it comes to like reasoning and transactions, teams always have a reason to do things, and with Alpine, there's a few very obvious reasons as to why they would actually. It's also just the fact of when you've got a guy like Flavio sitting around in the background, you can't rule anything out. It's like with Toto Wolff. Toto is the type of operator who is very kind of. He says what he thinks. He's very transparent. He is trying to build a reputable
relationship,
company.
long-term thing.
Yeah, like he is that type of guy. That's who he is. Flavio, on the other hand, is a man who literally orchestrates cheating in Formula One. So you cannot rule anything out. Like, there's a very different story here. So yeah, maybe they are fucking Ocon. Like it wouldn't be. Yeah, given that team, it's not unreasonable.
I think it seems that. I think mostly after Qatar, even pre-Qatar, apparently Toto is managing Ocon still. I didn't really know he was still doing that. Yeah. I mean, that's so much, I think, different levels of conflict.
They'll need to be careful about this as well because, like, Mercedes are going to be supplying the engine. And I think Toto, like, it won't kill the deal, but it would be a bit of a sour taste in Toto's mind if he finds out that Flavio, who's orchestrating buying the engine. I don't think he needs
to find out. Toto knows the game. Maybe, he will already know. I mean, if we are able to tell, and look, it's not like that I'm the one who's
maybe he was the one behind the scenes. Like, let's end this right now. Like,
could be. It could be.
Let's get this over.
It's just, but again, it's the Alpine history, right?
Yeah.
The entire, honestly, since Renault has come back, I was actually just going through it. The best result for the whole, I think let's just call it Renault. The best result is Ocon winning. He won Hungary. Second best result is Ocon P2 in Brazil. Then the third best is Ocon P2 in Sakir, where Perez won.
Yeah,
and there's no farewell for him, and that's Flavio, by the way, for you.
But also Ocon is just a terrible driver. Like he's good 6 races a year, and that's about it. So,
I mean, if he gets you the wins, right?
Yeah, that's true.
By the way, I mean, talking about Ocon, I think his career is as much as, what should we call it, as at crossroads as anyone else's. Cause look, next year it's Ollie Behrman, and boy is he good.
Yeah.
He's bloody good. And
the other thing is as well,
Hulkenberg,
the other thing is as well, look, I think a lot of the teams are going to be kind of quite close next year, and Haas, if everyone's operating at its highest, Haas should be last at the minute. Like, the Toyota deal's not going to really be hugely helpful until kind of 2026, I think, onwards. It will help.
50% of Haas is basically Ferrari, right?
Sure, yeah. So it depends on that as well. The point is, though, it's like he's going to have a hard time showing off what he can do at Haas, I think. So he could.
It does appear that he didn't really have much choice, isn't it?
It was the only place to go, really.
Yeah.
So
And who knows? Look, if Toyota is planning to come in and is pumping in money, which it is, by the way, in terms of putting in money, it's putting a lot of it there. And if this is the team that Ocon tries to build around him, maybe that helps in the long term.
Yeah,
but then that's the gamble that he has to take. Look,
I think. Look,
no
how
top
old
team
is
is
Ocon
hiring him
now?
anyways.
That's what I was just about to say. How old is Ocon now? He's
27, 28.
He's 28.
Like
I thought he was older than that for some reason. Yeah. So I mean, like what he's really
him
aiming
and Max
for.
are the same age, I think.
Right. So what he's really aiming for, because he's not going to get a top team drive. I think that's obvious. Like if he was going to, he had the opportunities to before. Like those are gone. So he's a solid midfield driver. So I guess his hope is to really do the likes of like Magnussen and other drivers and Perez up until Red Bull do, which is. They just try and make a strong career in the midfield and get a paycheck doing something they love. And I think he just...
Or maybe build with Toyota. I think that's what he's
he
probably
needs to do, though,
planning.
Honestly, he needs to... I think he needs to be a very good teammate in Haas. Because I think regardless of whether it's true or not, he has got a bit of a reputation as kind of like a poor teammate. And at the moment, I think a lot of people will blame that on Alpine right now. Alpine have kind of taken a lot of the spotlight away from him and blame themselves. If he goes into Haas and starts fucking around and not performing and crashing into Behrman or causing issues,
I think what's going to crash is going to...
What's going to happen is people are going to start going, oh, well, Ocon must have been the problem last year, even if it's not true. That's what will happen. And... Unfortunately, that spills into management as well.
The thing is, Behrman is bloody good.
Yeah.
My only thing is, if next season Behrman just turns up and outperforms Ocon, that's it for him. I think for Ocon, that's it. That's the lifetime in midfield. And for Behrman, it's probably a jump to Ferrari. Because lest we forget that who knows what happens with Lewis and Leclerc. He's probably, I think he's lining up Behrman.
Yeah.
He also won, I think this weekend he also won the sprint race. So
he's a very capable driver, It's going to be interesting to see him next year. Speaking of people having a shit time who were also Ocon's teammates, should we talk about Checo before we finish up the podcast?
I actually forgot.
Yeah.
Did I not write it? Oh, yeah.
You did,
Anyways.
yeah. We're already like 10 minutes over, but it's fine. We've got...
Yeah.
We'll do 20 minutes, 10 on Checo and... We'll do 18 on Checo and 2 minutes on Abu Dhabi.
And that's still 2 more than what we should on Abu Dhabi anyways. By the way, the reports are that Checo is retiring or is being forced to retire in Abu Dhabi.
Understandable kind of though, isn't it?
Yeah. Good that you're saying it. I think it's... For me, the problem is not Checo retiring.
Mm-hmm.
For me, the problem is Liam Lawson is getting promoted.
Yeah, if that holds, I do understand why, but
you don't at the same time.
It's not. I understand why, because I feel like they've basically run out of options, and this is essentially their best option at the moment, unless they want to roll the dice and just hope that Ricciardo coming back works out, which is also an equally probably terrible option.
Decision.
Yeah, so this is kind of their best option, but I'm not... I was really sold, as you know, on Lawson, and I'm no longer really sold on Lawson.
And as you know, I was not.
Yeah.
Remember? See, yeah. I judge these things perfectly.
You're like a broken clock. You're right twice a year.
Yeah. It's twice a day.
No. This is a really broken clock.
Okay. It's just... Okay, tell me if I'm right or wrong. This kind of perception that everyone had of Lawson, it's gotten worse as more and more he's raced in the last 7 or 8 races.
Yeah.
Right or wrong?
Yeah, I think so. Because it's 2 things, isn't it? It's as I've mentioned a couple of times in the past couple of episodes, he was that kind of cool, calm-headed guy who came in and dealt with being thrown into a very difficult situation in 23 very well. And this year, it doesn't seem like he's as cool, calm and collected as we thought. And I think obviously the reason for that is the pressure is on to try and get the Red Bull seat. But if you're caving under trying to get the Red Bull seat, caving as a Verstappen teammate is going to be a lot harder.
A lot easier.
A lot easier. Yeah, sorry. And then on top of that, I expected his out-and-out pace to kind of be far better than Tsunoda, and that hasn't happened either. Like,
which were the last 3 races?
In terms of what were the race or his results?
Races.
So we had Qatar, Las Vegas, and Brazil, yeah. And
all 3 of them, Lawson was behind
Tsunoda,
Yuki.
Yeah.
In Vegas, he was demolished.
Yeah.
What's the merit behind picking him?
Realistically, Yuki should get the job, but the
That's
reason the problem is, and I've said this the last 3 podcasts now when we talked about Checo, which I love how we just kind of jumped over Checo potentially retiring because everyone's just assumed like, yeah, it's probably true. We don't even need to mention. It's like, yeah, fair enough. I think he will be gone for 2025. I think he will be back in 2026 though, because I think he's an asset to
Checo.
Yeah, I think he's an asset to a lot of teams, and I think that a lot of teams will
Cadillac.
recognise. Cadillac is a big one that I think we could see him and Herta at Cadillac. I think it's a solid lineup.
It's going to happen.
And if that doesn't happen, I wouldn't be.
How old is Checo?
34, 35?
Yes, he's only 34.
Yeah, he's
Why
got
the fuck
time.
is he even thinking of retiring?
He won't.
What sense does it make?
Yeah, 1990. He's basically 6 months older than me, or 6 months younger than me. And look at all that I've achieved in that time. Nothing, absolutely nothing, except this podcast. Yeah, look. I think we've all agreed that is just it's a toxic relationship that isn't working, and Checo needs to go. I think unfortunately they probably should have called it in summer, and he would have had a drive for 2025. Interestingly though, I actually think this will work out better for him because Cadillac coming on could actually be a better jump for him, and it also gives him the options that if any teammate pairings don't work out next year, he may be the guy that could jump to a better seat. So it might interestingly work out to let people forget how shit of a year he's had for a little while as well. But yeah, so look, I think we both agreed we don't even need to discuss this because he's going. It's replacement talk, right?
Yeah.
Bye, Checo. Lawson. Yuki, I think Yuki should get the seat, but the problem is Yuki has shown that mentally I don't think he's strong enough to be Verstappen's teammate. And I more agree with Horner's look on that.
Yuki basically survived hours and hours with the US customs.
So have I, though.
So he can take on anything, right?
Well, so have I. So by that measure, I should be Verstappen's teammate next year.
Yeah, but you're not. You suck at driving, right? So
not well. Formula One driving, maybe.
Yeah.
Driving, not so much. I've never crashed apart from that time I flipped my car.
God, yeah.
Yuki.
That's the whole thing, right?
He should get a chance, though, right? I think we.
The problem is if you're not going to do it with merit, then you're priming yourself up for failure. That's the whole thing. Liam Lawson is good. He's solid. Right now, he's not faster than Yuki Tsunoda. At least not definitively faster.
No.
The only reason you're putting him in place of Yuki is because of the Honda affiliations. And if that's how you want to approach the sport, then it's basically you're just papering over the cracks and hoping George or maybe Oscar is willing to move to Red Bull in 2026. That's all you're trying to do.
Or that like Hajar comes in and can destroy him or something like that. Look, I think clearly they have decided against the idea of getting Colapinto in after the crashes. I do love Formula One that even the teams are so built on recency bias where it's like, this guy's amazing. One crash, oh, forget it. You know, it's like I expect that from fans, honestly. Not from the teams. For me, like everyone's talking about cooling on Colapinto. I'm like, a team will spot how good he is, and like the fact that he crashes, gets up, forgets about it, moves on, puts in a brilliant performance. I think that interestingly, that's exactly what Red Bull need right now. And if the decision has been made because of one crash, good luck with Lawson next year because the pressure is going to get to him and he's going to crash.
He's going to be just another Gasly or Albon.
We're in for a cycle, aren't we? Where basically what we're going to have is we're going to have Lawson get through half a season. We're going to have all of these talking points come up once again. Unless he proves us all wrong and goes in and is brilliant. But realistically,
I doubt it, man. It's
So-
not
so do
unless and
I.
until you have a dominant car, you're putting him in as much a pressure situation as anyone.
well, look,
It's
you
just
need
unfair.
you need two things. You need three things. Sorry, to be Verstappen's teammate, right? One of them's adaptability. I think, to be fair to Lawson, he's shown that he's been able to just jump in and get a grasp of the car to some extent. You need pure pace. Unfortunately, he's not beaten Yuki Tsunoda, so I don't know how close he's going to be to Verstappen. So that's a big question mark.
Yeah.
And you need the mentality, and the pressure is clearly getting to him already. So that's a big warning sign, which is one area where I think Colapinto clearly has the pace, and Horner's always said, "Give me a driver that is fast but makes mistakes, and I'll fix him." Like,
Yeah.
So Colapinto makes sense there. But I think what's going to happen here is you're going to have Lawson come in. It's not going to work out. You're going to have Hadjar promoted. It's going to be too soon. It's not going to work out. And then it's going to be this cycle once again.
And in all of this, Yuki is going to be stranded.
Yuki's going to be
it's-
gone by 2026. That'll be that then.
He'll be in Cadillac.
Maybe. With a Honda engine, yeah, maybe.
Oh yeah, I completely. By the way, I think we've not talked about it. They will get the Honda,
Yeah.
either a Honda or a Ferrari. But
Yeah.
it seems like it's going to be Honda because Ferrari already has a couple.
No, I think it's going to be Ferrari. Ferrari seem to be the biggest push at the minute, from everything I'm hearing, because Ferrari makes more sense
But
for them because they're
Ferrari
already
wants-
set up.
But Ferrari has to be willing to supply.
They
right?
are because they're losing. They're losing Sauber, so it makes sense for them. The thing is, some people think that it's like, just to explain to some fans as well. There's benefits and downsides to supplying. The downside is obviously it's more strain on your supply chain. But the upside to supplying more teams is that you get more data to build on your engine and make a better engine, which is why Mercedes, even though Mercedes said they would go down to 3 in the past, has weighed that up and thought, well, we'll supply Alpine because it makes sense to get more data and continue to build the engine. So I think Ferrari is not going to want to be left behind Mercedes in that respect. So it looks at the moment like it'll be Cadillac Ferrari for a while.
Until 2030. Basically.
Yeah, probably. Yeah.
They're not going to build an engine for 2 years, right?
The way it'll
no
work,
sense.
though, is if the Ferrari contract doesn't work out, then essentially Honda will be forced to supply them. That's essentially how it's going to work.
Yeah.
Because Audi can't be, because they're a brand new supplier.
And also Red Bull Powertrain cannot, because they are also a new supplier. So it just
Well,
ends
that
up
and
with
also, even if they weren't, they are already supplying one more team than Honda are.
Yeah, they're already supplying 2.
Yeah. So that's
Comes
the
down
way
to
it
Honda.
works.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a good thing. Yeah. Let's see. I mean, either ways, I think Cadillac as a project is going to be good. Good in the sense in the long term, because I think they have Otmar probably as the team principal, if I'm not wrong.
Yeah.
Pat
Yeah.
Simmons is there, so he'll also help them cheat a bit. You have these people. So you have these people in place. They know how to win in Formula One, so they're going to.
I think they've got a brilliant selection of people who some know how to win, and others are solid. But and others are solid midfield people, which I think starting out for them is a good idea to get the fundamentals right and then build on that, and not try and go, we're going to come in and get fucking titles. It's like, no, you're not. Like, just get the fundamentals right first.
Exactly.
I think it's a bit short-sighted from Red Bull not to try Colapinto if they don't do that. And I'll tell you why. Because they have gone from being the team that builds junior drivers to being the team that brought in Checo and basically forgot about their driver program, right? At the moment, they have forgotten about their driver program, and that's kind of taken for granted now, right? It's kind of accepted. So they could try Colapinto. However, if they try Lawson, they are then basically saying, we are now backing our junior program. And if they abandon it again, then it looks like they've abandoned it again, and it's going to bring up the whole conversation once again of, well, they've forgotten about. Right now, what they could say is, Lawson's not ready, Hadjar's not ready, we need to bring someone in for a while. And that would make sense. If they put Lawson in and it doesn't work out, you're then basically going, well, we're bringing Colapinto in because our driver program's fucked, which is a terrible look.
With Lindblad.
Yes, yeah, brilliant driver as well. So like,
He's the I think he's the one that they are banking on.
mm-hmm.
Let's see. I mean, next year he'll be in Formula 2 if he does decently. I think he's 16 right now or 17, something like that. I think he might need that exception that they were supposed to provide Kimi Antonelli.
The only advantage of this, I suppose, is that if they do bring Lawson up, it kind of forces them to go back to their old model of just bringing, working
Basically
on their talent.
Basically going through their talent.
Well,
for that's what's going to happen, I'm telling
for better
you,
or for worse, though, it might be a good thing. Because at the moment, they don't have a future Verstappen. And maybe starting that churn again needs to happen. Because
I guess so. At least they give the
Helmut
opportunity,
Marko
right?
and Red Bull basically just have a magic 8 ball. And they just basically shake it, especially Helmut Marko. They shake it. And sometimes it's right and sometimes it's wrong.
Most of the time it's wrong.
Most of the time it's wrong. But the more they shake
Peter,
it...
by the way.
Yeah,
I think
but the
Peter
more
did
they
entire
shake
list.
it, the more likely it is to get one right.
Yeah.
So maybe maybe they just need to do that again.
You're on the verge of it, right? It seems like, I think I won't be surprised if they do half a season with Lawson and then the other half with Hadjar, and then they are like, who's next?
2026 is
Checo, come back.
Lindblad.
At least you didn't crash.
I could genuinely see a situation where you get half a season with Lawson. Hadjar's not ready. Lawson's failed. Colapinto comes in. He's in for half a season. Then in 2026 we have Hadjar. Then we have Lindblad in the second car.
We are forgetting one thing, by the way, in all of this. James Vowles. I don't think he wants to let go of Franco Colapinto.
Maybe not. The other thing is, like, a lot of people basically I saw were like, oh well, Colapinto was just a flash in the pan, and look, he wasn't as fast as Albon for 2 races, and you're just like, oh Jesus, like, just come on, like, are we?
He's running the old car.
Yeah, I know. It just.
I think that was the question that was put to him, that it was on Thursday and Friday that. So what's your aim for the weekend? It was to not crash.
Yeah.
And then the race in the first lap.
Yeah. In fairness, like, not his fault at all. He was a passenger there,
Yeah.
Hulkenberg showing Bottas how to go bowling,
and do it
and survive. Yeah.
So. Oh yeah, he survived, right?
Yeah.
And then he spun on his own.
Yeah.
He also had a shit. I think he had a broken floor or something after the first lap. So yeah. Anyways, lots of. By the way, we are in the last weekend of the season. Last weekend.
Yeah.
Abu Dhabi. 2021. That's your favorite moment?
I mean, it's the most memorable, but no.
For you?
No, it's the most memorable recently, but no. Favorite moment? Vettel winning 2010. Amazing.
For me.
Yeah.
I think I've not seen a more... I'll be honest, I've not seen a more, you can say... What's the word? Feel good factor from a championship win until since that one. Mm-hmm. That was the last time, because I think everyone knew Vettel lost, I think, 3 or 4 race wins that season. Yeah. Just reliability, and he would have just walked the championship if that had not happened. When he won the championship, almost everyone was happy.
Yeah,
I mean, I remember Lewis and Button, they just lifted him on their shoulders when he won the championship.
Can we just say right now, thank you, Vitaly Petrov. Thank you so much.
Oh. Wherever you are,
the GOAT,
the greatest. And thank you, Formula One, for not having DRS.
DRS, yeah. Maybe that's what they're hoping for now. Maybe they'll just get rid of DRS next year and see what happens. They'll get rid of DRS, bring back Vitaly Petrov next year. It'll be a brilliant season. Yeah. And Lewis Hamilton will lose stuck behind Vitaly in a high tech.
I mean, honestly, I'll prefer Vitaly over Nikita Mazepin. So that's
true. Yeah.
It's I just lost my chain of thought. I actually had something in mind.
That is. Yeah. I think probably the most memorable for everybody is going to be 2021 because it's more recent and it was one of the more controversial ones. For us as Vettel fans, 2010 is always going to stick out.
That's it. Yeah, for me, that is the one. I just love that one.
Yeah.
How would you rate the track?
Yeah, subpar. To be honest, honestly, pathetic. Brazil should be the finale every year. It should be. Brazil is the best track for the finale, in my opinion.
What did they think when they made that third sector in Abu Dhabi? Like, what was the thought process behind it?
I don't know. Some sheikh was on his yacht, like high on some sort of
nothing, absolutely nothing.
And
they've ideally,
can you get high on shisha? No, that doesn't matter.
Yeah, in entirely parallel communication.
Sorry.
Oh God.
The third sector just ruins the whole track because you basically get to there. Yeah, you can't get
unless
past.
you're on soft tires and your competitor is on hard tires.
Even then,
Last lap of the season,
even then it's impossible.
and the championship is on the line.
Do you remember how
Then you
much?
can.
Remember how much Checo held up Lewis through there? Like,
Okay.
yeah, it
What,
just
5-6 seconds he lost in
Yeah,
just
yeah,
a
yeah.
sector, right?
he completely just backed him up there. Yeah,
Utter nonsense.
it's a silly
I-
track, to be honest.
I think they should make one change. Just cut the whole thing in between and just have a straight line.
Yeah,
Just make it a straight line. And they've made a lot of changes as such. I think Karun Chandok has been the one who's been doing it. They just need to make that one final change, because
Yeah,
I think that last sector is utter bullshit.
yeah. Just have that come straight through and down onto the pitch straight, and then
Just that, what's his name? The Singapore Grand Prix, they made these changes, right? And it has made the track a bit more raceable.
and it's not like they don't have the money to do it. Let's be honest here. Like,
Yeah.
they've
I
got
mean, they
the
can make
cash to
50
do it.
tracks.
Yeah,
Yeah.
So like they could do it easily. So,
So what's at stake, by the way, this weekend?
the constructors. That's about it, isn't it? And second in the championship.
Right?
It's 8 points between Leclerc and Norris, which is just, it shows how good Leclerc is and how shit McLaren are. That's what it shows. If you're losing McLaren, or if you're fighting like McLaren, you're fighting Ferrari. Like, stop being so shit. Like, stop. You're fighting Ferrari. Like, what are you doing? Anyway.
I mean, we're back to 2007, right?
Yeah,
McLaren
but
was fighting Ferrari
but
in the last race
Ferrari,
of the season.
Ferrari were still decent somewhat in 2007. Like this
Yeah,
was
yeah,
before,
I mean,
it was before
obviously.
John Todd walked out the door, right? Or did he leave? Yeah.
Until
So
2008, it was fine. Then
Yeah.
things just...
things went Ferrari shaped.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what we have is, there's 8 points gap between Norris and Leclerc.
And
That's
21 in
one.
the championship for the constructors, right?
Yeah.
That's done, I think. 21. I think, like, unless McLaren really fuck up, which they never do. I think, look, 21 points, like, even if they got a 1-2, Ferrari got a 1-2, like, McLaren would really need to fuck up their race not to kind of hang on to that.
21 points.
It's 44 you win. So it is, like, it's possible,
It's
obviously.
possible.
But
It's actually possible.
my
If
point
they
is,
win, wait,
Ferrari would have to
first
get a
and second
1-2.
is how many? 44
40,
points?
43 plus the fastest lap is 44.
Yeah. 15 and 10, which is 25. So there's a 19 point. If there's a Ferrari 1-2, and Oscar has been screwing up a lot lately. Oh,
But I don't know if it'll be a Ferrari 1-2 here. I don't know. It could be.
The last sector is theirs. That ridiculous sector. That's there.
Yeah.
First and second sector is, again, second sector is the long straight. I think Ferrari will do well. Track
Yeah.
temperatures are going to be higher. Again, Ferrari will do well. I think it could be Ferrari's side.
Yeah, I just don't know if it's going to be like, it would have to be a 1-2 and then like a really, really poor executed race from McLaren.
Which has not happened.
It's advantage. Yeah. So are we just going to crown Ferrari during this podcast then?
I mean, we're
The
talking
thing
as
is-
if Ferrari has never messed up a race.
Yeah, Ferrari's going
It
to make
just
a huge
did.
mistake.
Just
Yeah.
last
And I mean,
basically, who doesn't fuck up, honestly?
realistically as well, the crazy thing is, if it wasn't for Mercedes in Las Vegas, Ferrari could have been crowned champions in Qatar.
Yeah.
Like that's how close
That's a
it's
realistic
been.
possibility, yeah?
Yeah,
100%.
So
There's basically a lot of things in the air right now when it comes to that.
it could go either way. I would imagine it's McLaren's to lose. I feel like this track will go more their way than it will Ferrari's way, personally.
I think
But
the
then
last
I
few
did-
races
I
have
did say
shown
that about
it's
Qatar,
been very
didn't I?
hard to see. I mean, I've not seen the dominant McLaren for a while now.
Yeah, we need Oscar Piastri to start driving properly again, because he just hasn't been there the last while, and we need Lando Norris to make sure he spots yellow flags.
I mean, his
that would be
starts
good.
are nailed now.
Yeah.
He's able to start the race as well for a change.
Yeah, but then he forgets to take his foot off the throttle, so that's the
Yeah.
problem then. So fixes one thing, breaks another.
Yeah.
Ferrari, I'm not so sure about. Let's see.
Red Bull, who knows, honestly.
Red Bull
have
could
no
win
clue.
the race at Abu Dhabi. Like, I
Yeah.
genuinely,
he
I
could be
wouldn't surprise me.
P1, he could be fighting with Nico Hülkenberg at Haas, he could be doing any of those things. Even
Basically,
he doesn't know.
The problem is Ferrari essentially need to win this race, or that's that. Like,
Yeah.
there's if they come third and fourth, even if even if McLaren are further down, it's game over basically. It's like it's.
I think I can back Leclerc winning the race, but I'm not sure if Carlos would be there right alongside him.
Yeah,
he's not been that well. I think, but again,
I think this Mercedes will be in the mix here as well. I reckon. Well, George will.
Yeah.
Sorry. Look, from now on, when I say Mercedes, I mean George, and when I say Red Bull, I mean Max. So,
I mean, for one race, right? Because then that's it.
As I said,
season's over. By the way, who could have thought?
Yeah.
Wow.
Well, we knew by the exact dates that have been planned out in the schedule. It's not exactly a surprise. Moron.
It's not like it's been a small season either.
I posted something over the weekend that I think pissed some people off as well. I said the number 2 drivers of Piastri, Perez, and Hamilton aren't having a great weekend.
That went well, right? That would have gone down like.
It's accurate though, so I don't care.
Hey, it is.
Yeah.
And for P5, I mean, who cares? Whoever is Alpine, Haas, and Team RB. Team RB.
Yeah. I think it'll be Haas. Personally, I'll take that.
They need 5 points.
Yeah, I think it'll be Haas.
They could.
Doohan's going to make a shit show for Alpine because he's terrible.
Yeah. I mean, it would be. Wouldn't it be fun if Ocon comes in and he drives in place of Kevin Magnussen?
Yeah. And then Lawson's going to crash because Lawson's basically been told he's got the seat, which will put him under huge pressure. Crash.
Yeah.
And then Colapinto will be in for Red Bull because Lawson crashes in the last race.
You really want Colapinto in Red Bull, right?
I really like Colapinto. If Colapinto's on the grid next year, I will be showing up in Colapinto gear for every single podcast and making every excuse under the sun for everything he does wrong. I'm going to be a proper Colapinto stan. And it's not because he's from like the closest country, because he's not actually this close.
Oh, geez.
Is he?
I mean, what's wrong with you?
It's not because of that.
It's too far.
Yeah, it's like really far away. I think it's actually the same distance as London is from me. Like it's really far. It depends on which part of Argentina, but yeah, Argentina's like it looks small on a map, but it's like incredibly far. It's like
interesting.
I think it's like an 8. I think it's like an 8 hour. No, it's closer than London, but I think it's still like an 8 hour flight or like a 6 or 7 hour flight from Mexico to Buenos Aires for me, which is insane. Like it's 6 hours from New York to London, to put that in perspective. So
Argentina is having fun time, isn't it?
Yeah, it's great country.
Millet.
Yeah.
That is for a different podcast.
Different podcast, yeah.
Anyway, final race, final predictions. Let's get this done.
Well, I'm sick of not doing it, so I'm going to do it now because it keeps getting done in my favour, against me. So I'm going to say Max P1, Leclerc P2, Norris P3.
I think Leclerc wins, Norris second, Max third.
Okay. And none of us. And then I'm going to think George is going to be fourth. That's what I'm going to say.
Yeah.
And then basically what we're going to have is the top 4 is going to be the title contenders for next year.
Oh, wow. Imagine if that happens. Wow. On that bombshell, thanks for watching, guys.
Yeah. We cut it to 2 hours. We will get this down to an hour and a half. We will work on it.
We promise.
No,
it takes time.
But we'll try.
Yeah.
We'll try to try.
By the way, pardon, sorry, apologies. Actually, none of those things. Lewis Hamilton bashing is just part of the sport. We've done a lot of praise as well. Go back, watch.
Look, you're just racist.
Spa. Yeah, he is. I'm not.
No, you're racist. I'm white. I can't be racist.
Yeah, of course.
No.
Anyways, drop a comment, please. And if you know anyone, please subscribe. We'll see you next time.
Tell everyone how much you hate the podcast. We want the Barbra Streisand effect. Thanks. Bye.
Take care.